Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. And happy Thanksgiving Eve. Running a little bit late this morning. Weird morning. And part of the reason I'm running a little bit late is because my daughter just told me the most incredible thing, which is that she dreamed about my grandmother, who passed away a few years ago. And the one specific thing, the last thing she said to me before I was like, okay, I got to go live, was that grandma wasn't hunched over anymore. And I think that's pretty cool. And could probably turn into a whole topic for another day, but my grandmother had that kyphosis hump. I'm not sure if I'm using the right word. The one thing that my daughter noticed in the dream was that she was very vibrant, and that she didn't have that hump anymore. She wasn't hunched over anymore. So, okay. So that's why I'm running a little bit late today, and I'm going to stop talking about that because I just think it's really cool. So anyway, if you are just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I'm a mom, a nana, a girlfriend, a runner, jazzerciser. I work for the local affiliate of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, known as NAMI Citrus, and I am a grad school student studying for my Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. And I started Wellness Wednesday because I've been in a lifelong journey with anxiety and depression, and I consider myself to be in recovery now, which recovery is... that in of itself is a journey. It's not a destination, in my opinion. But I have found over time that peer support really works. And that's why support groups work. Peer wisdom works. And when we get together and we share tips and tricks with each other, for just about anything, a lot of times we can learn from others new things to try. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But it's that sharing and that engagement that really makes a difference. So it was on my heart for a long time to start Wellness Wednesday, and I finally did. And I talked a little tiny bit about that in the last couple of episodes. Last week's was The Whisper. It was called Listen for the Whisper. And I touched a little bit about that, about listening for that whisper that keeps telling you that you're supposed to be doing something, and then you talk yourself out of it. So that's kind of how Wellness Wednesday started, was as a whisper. If you've been following my page for a while, I hope you enjoyed last week's video about listening for the whisper. And I just appreciate you being here. I'm wearing my default setting gratitude shirt today. No, this is not from my online boutique, but I love it anyway. And with it being the day before Thanksgiving, here we are with an attitude of gratitude. With that said, if you're here, let me know you're here. If you don't see this till afterwards, hit hashtag replay in the comments. My lighting is strange. I think because it's lighter outside in the mornings now, so I don't get quite the same light. Let me try something. I have this handy dandy new... Oh, no, we're not going to do that one just yet. That doesn't look right. Okay, anywho. So... tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and tomorrow, I started to say something and then I got sidetracked by the light. Sorry, the text from my daughter this morning kind of blew all the birds out of my tree. All right, so if you are here, let me know you're here. If you don't see this till afterwards, hit hashtag replay in the comments. Something to let me know you saw it. Say hi, ask a question, make a comment. Good morning, Miss Raquel. It's kind of funny you're the first one to pop up this morning. Anyway, especially considering what I was just talking about. Anyway, again, I'll message you later and explain why. In any case, if you're here, let me know you're here. If you don't see this till afterwards, hit hashtag replay in the comments. And sometimes Facebook doesn't show me all the things, so sometimes I don't see that you're watching, or I don't see your comments, but it doesn't mean I'm ignoring you. It just means that Facebook isn't showing me all of the things. So, basically tomorrow kicks off officially, and I've made references to Halloween kicking off the holiday season, or at least the eating season, but tomorrow officially kicks off the holiday season. We usually start with Thanksgiving, and then it's kind of a headlong run into Christmas and New Year's. So that means the season of casseroles, of travel meltdowns, of grocery store warfare, retail store warfare, although it doesn't look the same as it did when I was a kid, with people fighting over Cabbage Patch Kids. But before we dive headlong into the holidays, I wanted to talk about some little things that can make a huge impact. And this is gonna be 3 little stories, and they're gonna fit all together. So I want to start with something called the 8-minute call. Last week, I was listening to. I listen daily to our Daily Bread devotionals. Some of you may remember those in book form, that you could get them in a lot of places. You could pick up the little book that had devotionals every day for the whole month. Well, now there's an app. The books still exist. The books have gotten bigger, thank God, because most of our eyes have gotten smaller. But there's an app also. And so I listen to it because it will actually read me the devotional. It's pretty cool. In any case, it talked about an idea called the 8-minute call and how it can change someone's life, especially in this modern world where genuine connection is a real struggle sometimes. I mean, it just is. And I did a search, and there is a laundry list of all types of websites that reference this New York Times article. And I wanted to just kind of read it to you because it's really super short. And then when I opened, that was the other reason I was late. When I opened it up this morning, of course, it was like, oh, you have to subscribe to do this. So, a click and a 1-month subscription to New York Times later, here we are. I actually have the article. Anywho, so it's a really cool little short article, and it was part of a 7-day happiness challenge series that was run in 2023. I had not heard of this 8-minute call concept, but there are websites everywhere that reference this article, wellness websites, psychology websites, just everywhere. If you Google it, it's everywhere. But in most places, you can't read the article unless you subscribe to something. So this is the article by Jancy Dunn from January 2nd, 2023, where she says, I just had an 8-minute call with my good friend Tina, whom I've known for over 3 decades. I could never seem to connect with her. She has a very demanding job, until I sent her a text last week proposing an 8-minute phone call. And she responded, that seems weird. And then Jancy goes on to say, come on, I wheedled, you can do it. The President of the United States could probably do 8 minutes. I promise not to go long, name a time. So at the appointed hour, Jancy called her friend Tina. I'm sure the names have been changed to protect the innocent. I don't know. Jancy is the author of the article. At the appointed hour, she gave her a ring. In short order, we talked about our mother's health, made birthday plans, gossiped about a friend who abruptly quit his job and moved to a tiny Mexican town, traded book recommendations, and explored the possibility of an afterlife. Verdict, we're not sure. Intently focused, we knocked out subject after subject before Tina announced that our 8 minutes were up and that she had arrived at the dry cleaners. But Jancy hung up, and she was smiling, and she found herself humming a little tune because she had missed Tina and didn't realize it until she heard her voice. She was also surprised by how much ground they covered in 8 minutes without the call feeling really rushed. So the point here was the connection was brief, but it was real. So her happiness challenge was to try this 8-minute phone call, to think of someone you love, someone you miss, someone you wish you connected with more often, and send that person a quick text and ask if they can chat on the phone for 8 minutes. Ideally today, but if not, schedule it for sometime in the week. You can even, she even gives a script. So there's actually a lot of research. She actually cites some research in her article, but there's actually a lot of research, and we've touched on some of it before, that touches on how brief calls or brief connections can, with friends, with family members, a few times a week can actually significantly reduce depression, loneliness, and anxiety. And in this time of year especially, this is important year round, but in this time of year especially, people feel it more. We've talked about that before too, and I'll have to find the video and drop it in the comments. But actually, I think it was last year. It is not uncommon for people who routinely experience anxiety or depression, or even sometimes people that don't, to feel it more, or to be more prone to it in this time of year in the holiday season. So I will find that video and I will drop it in the comments. But y'all, I'm guilty. I don't make time for phone calls. I am busy. I am trying to control every minute of my time that I possibly can. Obviously not always very well. And I'm a talker, okay? And there's some people that I drag my feet about calling because they're also talkers. So I know when you get two talkers on the phone together, it's like a 2 or 3 hour phone call. So I am guilty. I don't make those phone calls enough. I tend to revert to texts and emails to try to communicate. But a few weeks ago, I called to talk to my grandson, and it occurred to me after I hung up. Now, I see them fairly regularly, not as much as I would like to. But I don't call. And one of the reasons that I don't call is because the last time I did call routinely, they were like 5 and 6, and having a FaceTime call with children that age is basically like going on a tilt-a-whirl with the camera out. You know what I mean? It's the phone's moving all over the place. You can't keep up. They're over here. They're over there. They're up there. So I had just kind of stopped doing that. But they're also 9 now. And I talked to him for a few minutes, and I don't know if it helped him, but it sure helped me. And I hung up wondering why I don't make it a point to do this more. And I really intend to do that more often now, especially since reading about this 8-minute call thing. So speaking of my grandson, let's sit on this for a hot minute, and I'm going to talk about a couple of other children, him and one other. And I promise this is all going to make sense together in just a few minutes, so just stick with me here. The note that I have here is the helpers. So, there is a child that I've talked about, and I'm going to try really hard. I'm really struggling this morning already not to get emotional during this. So those of you that have been following me for a while, you know that I have been talking about my sister-in-law's niece, Lane. She's 5 years old. She has been in PICU for over a month with MOGAD encephalitis, which is some kind of very rare autoimmune, and meningitis. And this is just an unthinkable storm. And the great news is that yesterday the doctors decided that she was ready to move out of PICU onto the main floor. She still has a very long road ahead of her, but that is huge. It really is a huge blessing and miracle that she can move out of ICU. And there's more updates, but most of you have been following my post on that. It's quite a ways back in my feed. And I try to, whenever I get an update, I try to put it in the comments and then pin that comment to the top. So she's my sister-in-law's niece. As far as I'm concerned, that makes her family. Y'all, the things I have seen happening around this little girl have been truly amazing. Lainey Wilson, the country star, held a concert in Tampa and lifted Lane up in prayer during that concert for a moment of prayer, and then sang Amazing Grace. Now, this was like 20,000 some people in the audience, I don't know, praying for her. When Lainey Wilson was interviewed for the CMA Music Awards, and asked what the favorite part of her, here we go, what the favorite part of her tour was, she talked about a little girl named Lane who was having some health problems that she got to lift up in prayer in Tampa. So this made an impact not just on everyone, but also on her as well. Anyway, there is also recently a news report about a Tampa artist who took Lane's helmet that's very boring, very brown, and Lane is a very vibrant little girl, and she custom painted the helmet for Lane. And then there's just been businesses all over the Tampa area that have been doing fundraisers, that have been putting on their signs, pray for Lane. Friends, neighbors, people who don't even know her, sharing the story, sharing from my post, sharing from other people's posts. And of course, all of you who have been faithfully commenting and more prayers every time I do an update. It's truly incredible because this little girl and her family are surrounded by love, and they're surrounded by helpers. So I love the quote Mr. Rogers had that said, look for the helpers. Now, there's a little bit of strange context here. There's a little controversy around that quote because someone wrote an article suggesting that it's bad advice for adults to look for the helpers, that it leads to apathy, that it leads to people deciding that somebody else is going to take care of it so they don't have to, or, oh, there's a helper here, I don't have to bother. And that's really not what Mr. Rogers intended. And of course, you know, how you view it, what lens you view it through is everything. So Mr. Rogers intended it for children to help them feel better in scary situations. Big things where they should be looking for police officers and they should be looking for the helpers, firemen, etc., to help them feel less scary. But here's the deal, and this is what I got out of it. It doesn't hurt anyone to stop in the middle of a storm like the one that Lane's parents are in, that Lane and her family are in. It doesn't hurt anyone to stop focusing on the storm long enough to recognize and be grateful for the helpers. That's, in my opinion, never a bad thing. I didn't read the whole article that was controversial, that had a different take on Mr. Rogers' quote. I did read some comments. I don't think it hurts anyone to stop focusing on the storm long enough to recognize and be grateful for the helpers. And as adults, it's our job to be the helpers whenever we can. And here's another thing. Kids can be helpers too, and they want to. All this video footage I've seen of these fundraisers of Lane, there's kids that are saying, pray for Lane. There's kids making bracelets. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Kids want to be helpers too. Okay, so that's story number 2. Stick with me, and this is all going to start making sense in a second. The second child I want to talk about is my grandson. Kind of started out talking about him a little bit. I want to talk about him again. Recently, he got a note from his teacher about being super helpful with a new classmate, and that he was also on his teacher's thankful list for being helpful. That was the thing about him that she was thankful for, is that he is helpful. There's no parade there. There's no spotlight. It's just quiet kindness that made someone else feel welcome on a hard day. That's a big deal. We often underestimate how big of a deal that really can be. He loves to help and encourage. He has his issues. He can be a challenge, but he has this gigantic heart. And the truth of the matter is that that's the case with most kids. They just naturally do the things that we overcomplicate because they haven't learned how to get in their own way. They haven't learned how to be like, oh no, this person's going to want to talk for 30 minutes and I only have 8, so I'm not going to call them. They haven't learned how to get in their own way. Their hearts want to be helpful. Their hearts want to be encouraging. He is an encourager. My grandson is an encourager. And kids want to be that way. Just 2 of my favorite quotes, I kind of liken this to Mr. Rogers. Look for the helpers, look for the encouragers. A couple of my favorite quotes. One of them by Dave Willis is, be an encourager because the world has enough critics already. Don't we know that's absolutely true? Like beyond true. Like, I don't know how long ago that quote was said or coined or whatever, but it was way ahead of its time probably. And the other one is, of course, 1 Thessalonians, therefore encourage one another and build each other up just as you are doing. And the word encourage is mentioned in so many quotes and so many places in the Bible and in so many other ways. I was part of a support group once, a peer support group for anxiety and depression that was called the Encouragers. And I never really understood at the time what that meant, but I understand it more intimately now more than ever, what it means to be an encourager. And I'd like to think of myself as one, which is part of the reason I do these Wellness Wednesdays. So how does this all fit together? Because I realize that all 3 of these stories kind of point in the same place. Don't you think? Connection matters. Kindness matters. And encouragement matters. And none of it takes a whole afternoon, y'all. None of it takes a whole afternoon. None of it has to take a whole day unless you want it to. So before Thanksgiving hits, this is my challenge to you. And this is where I was going with these 3 stories. Before Thanksgiving hits, make an 8-minute call to someone who has been a helper or an encourager to you, or someone you haven't heard from in a while, somebody that you miss, somebody that you miss chatting with. Make an 8-minute call. Be a helper. A small, quiet act of kindness for somebody else makes you the helper. That's all it takes. And that doesn't take 8 minutes either. Sometimes it takes about 30 seconds. And of course, encourage someone. I had to look at my notes because I wanted to make sure I was staying on track here. Encourage someone. Encourage another child. Encourage a coworker, a family member who's been carrying more than you realized. You might be surprised to find that one act does all three of those. It connects and it helps and it encourages. And it's literally one act, like an 8-minute call. So I just wanted to tell these stories because I think they're important. I think they're important not in the situations that create them, like in the case of Lane. There's beautiful things happening there. And I am continuously, as I hear things that Lane is doing, or that are happening around Lane rather, and even the progress that Lane is slowly making, I am constantly overwhelmed and just my heart is just full seeing all the miracles. We often, when we're looking for miracles, we're frequently looking for these big showy things. Sometimes the little miracles are the biggest ones, and those are the helpers and the encouragers and the connections. That's what this is about, and that's why I told these 3 stories. We need to be more like my grandson. I want to be more like my grandson, and I do feel like I have a big heart, and I do want to encourage, but I frequently get in my own way. So I want to be more like a 9-year-old that doesn't know how to get in their own way yet, if that makes sense. And this 8-minute call idea, just do the thing. Just send the text. Send the text and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you. Do you have time for 8 minutes with me? Okay, 8 minutes does sound a little weird. Make it 5, make it 10, make it whatever. But make that connection. Because in that one act, you might be the helper and the encourager all at the same time. So that's my message for today. My challenge to you is to make that call. Make an 8-minute call, send a text, ask someone if they can make 8 minutes for you. If you can't, if that's a big step, call and leave them a voicemail and tell them that you miss them and that you'd like to talk to them and that you hope they're doing well. Sometimes that literally is all it takes to change someone's day. So with that said, this is not a long one, but I felt like it was a really super important message for the day before Thanksgiving as we make all of our preparations and begin to connect with the people that we are going to connect with in person for Thanksgiving. Think about the people that we wish were there, the people that we're not going to get a chance to connect with in person, and maybe make that 8-minute call. Or, again, a random act of kindness, some encouragement in the grocery store. It could literally change your day and someone else's. I know that when I do something, I tend to like to do things in secret. But when I do things for other people, it lifts my spirits so high. Even when I'm having a bad day, if I've got a bad attitude, the fastest way to fix it, next to exercise for me, is to do something nice for somebody else, especially if I can make it secretive, because then I feel like a little Santa elf running around, right? Good morning, Miss Ann. So, with that said, that's my challenge to you. Make an 8-minute call to someone who's been a helper or an encourager to you, or be a helper. Do a quiet, small act of kindness. Encourage someone. You might be surprised. You can do all of that in one simple phone call if you want to. So I want you to remember these things as we move into Thanksgiving and as we move into the holiday season. We don't have to solve world peace. That's not our jobs, per se. That change starts at home. 8 minutes. Even our phone batteries can handle 8 minutes, right? And then as we lead into the holidays, again, I just want to reiterate, we don't have to wait for the big moments, because a lot of times it's the small little things, being the little helpers, being the encouragers. It's the small little things that are just so much bigger. They turn into the big moments. And that's important to remember when we're sitting around the dinner table tomorrow. Your 8 minutes might just be the encouragement or help that someone is praying for. Okay, I'm going to stop talking because I'm going to start crying again. In any case, I hope you found this helpful. I hope you found it inspiring. I hope it has you thinking about the people you wish you were talking to that you hadn't talked to in a while. And I hope that you will send that text today or leave that voicemail asking for just 8 minutes of their time if they can make 8 minutes with you. With that said, if you did find this helpful, please feel free to share it. I will have it uploaded to YouTube within a very short period of time. All my previous videos are on YouTube. I will find last year's video called, I remembered what it was called. It was called Hello Darkness, My Old Friend, where I talk a little bit about how anxiety and depression tend to increase this time of year, which is why I mentioned it's important to do these things for the holiday season, to make these connections. And again, if you found this helpful, share. That's the best way for other people to see it. With that said, I am going to wrap up now, but I truly hope that you have a safe and happy Thanksgiving and that your bellies and your hearts are full of gratitude. Until next week, be well and have a happy Thanksgiving.